This might actually be another big year for VR gamers. We've got Civilization 7 making its way to standalone VR, we've got Valve's long-rumored standalone headset, codenamed Deckard, possibly arriving as soon as this year, and a couple of new VR games worth keeping an eye on, including a new zombie survival game and a time-traveling adventure, both releasing as soon as this month. If any of that sounds exciting to you, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. But without further ado, let's get into it. To start us off, let's talk about the biggest name in strategy games making the jump to VR. Civilization 7 is coming to the standalone meta ecosystem on the Quest 3 and 3S, and while that's got a lot of people hyped, it's also bringing some, let's call it constructive criticisms. A few weeks ago, 2K Games officially announced Civ 7 for VR. That's a pretty big deal for the Civ franchise, and even more so for VR gaming as a whole. Naturally, fans were excited for this entry when it dropped mid-February, but now that the game is out, reactions are a little mixed. As an example, Steam reviews for Civ 7 are currently sitting at mixed, which is more or less gamer talk for "I love what this could be, but fix this game ASAP." The general consensus is that while Civ 7 is an amazing game, possibly the best in the series, it's got a ton of small annoyances that add up fast. Some of these issues include uninformative UI, jarring transitions between ages, and a bunch of questionable design choices overall. But before we start thinking the worst is inevitable, there's good news to be had here. 2K is already working on two major patches. Both are set to drop this month, and both are set to smooth out a host of problems. The first big patch, patch 1.1.0, should be out by the time this video drops, and right behind it, patch 1.1.1 is set to clean up even more of those rough edges around the end of March. So if you were on the fence about picking up Civ 7 for VR, friends of mine who are actively playing this game have encouraged me that it might be worth waiting just a little longer to see how these fixes shake out. But if you're looking for detailed patch notes and all of my sources for this episode, check out the Google Doc in the description. Now, let's shift gears and talk about the serious blow my wallet is probably going to take this year. The same people that brought us popular PC gaming platform Steam, the legendary VR title Half-Life Alyx, and the Valve Index potentially have something awesome headed our way. If you've been holding your breath for the next big thing in VR, you might not have to wait much longer. A noteworthy leak is making the rounds, backed by multiple sources and a well-known data miner named Gabe Follower over on X. According to this info, Valve's long-rumored standalone VR headset, codenamed Deckard, could be making its grand entrance this year. As for the specs of this headset, those are mostly a mystery as of now. We don't have confirmed details on the lens quality, field of view, or any of the fancy tech specs many VR enthusiasts like us pick at. So, as exciting as this is, take any wild claims you hear with a huge grain of salt, especially when it comes to the specs. That said, we do have an idea of what's possibly coming in the box. We could expect a pair of controllers and maybe even a game or two bundled in. I don't think it's far-fetched to assume that a standalone version of Half-Life Alyx could also be included, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. Valve as a company just seems to understand gamers, and they're no strangers to flexing on the competition without intending to. Former Amazon Prime gaming executive Ethan Evans made a post on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago, underscoring Amazon's failed efforts to muscle in on Valve's territory. Link for that is in the description, but it can be summarized with a single sentence from that post, namely Ethan stating, quote, "We needed to build something dramatically better, but we failed to do so." That being said, Valve has made historical marks on the VR gaming industry with Half-Life Alyx and the Valve Index, so I don't think it's crazy to assume this rumored standalone headset will have any less impact on the industry as a whole. And that said, according to these same leaks, the new headset is expected to be a jaw-dropping $1,200. That price is pretty crazy and my wallet is already hurting, but the crazier part is that Valve might actually be selling this thing at a loss. For clarity, that means the price we pay as consumers is actually less than what it costs Valve to make each headset. This is a big deal because it suggests Valve is playing the long game, likely betting on software sales and ecosystem growth to make up for it. The industry as a whole believe Meta has been doing the same thing with the 3 and 3S, despite a history of questionable decisions, in an effort to bring VR to more people. And speaking of bringing VR to you, let's talk about some VR games dropping this month that should definitely be on your radar. There are actually quite a few releases coming this month, but two in particular stood out to me. If you've been craving another zombie shooter in the same vein as games like the popular Arizona Sunshine series, this one might be worth checking out. You play as a former soldier navigating a post-apocalyptic world in search of his missing family, so your typical heartwarming zombie apocalypse plot. Then, on the same day, we've got Wanderer, The Fragments of Fate coming to Meta standalone headsets. The PC release for this game is still a bit of a mystery with no confirmed date at time of writing. And unfortunately, the price for this one is also in the same boat. Now, this game has been through two delays, originally set to drop last May, then pushed to October, and now finally launching almost a year after the original planned release. The devs have made it clear that they're prioritizing the player experience, which in terms of reasons for a delay is as solid as it gets. And hey, if it means a polished VR adventure, I'm all for it. In this game, you'll be traveling through time and changing history, all within an experience I'll definitely be reviewing, so subscribe for that one. And again, both of these hit standalone VR and possibly PC VR on March 27th, so mark your calendars. All that said, more VR gaming content is coming your way weekly. But before you go, if you enjoyed this rundown of VR gaming news, please do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps out the channel. And speaking of help, if you're looking for something to play next, I've got some reviews for you. Check those out because they're good for your health allegedly. Thanks for watching.